Syndrome in the 2020s. This is brought to you by Women Who Code DFW, but also is a part in general of Women Who Code Digital as a whole. Our mission here at Women Who Code is to inspire women to excel in technology careers. Our vision is to see a world where diverse women are represented as technical executives, founders, venture capitalists, board members, and software engineers. So it's really more than just the coding part, it's just women in tech as a whole, and wanting to see things being much more in parity in terms of gender representation. So since Women Who Code is an inclusive community, we do not tolerate harassment of any form. We have a full, long code of conduct at womenwhocode.com/code of conduct. But in general, if you ever feel that anybody has done anything, said anything to you that we might not be able to catch just by the chat or something like that, feel free to fill out an incident report form at the specific link. This can be anonymous, or you can have your full name if you want to. Just letting everybody know, because that is we expect everybody who attends our events or even goes into our Slack channel to be abiding by this code of conduct. So this is our DFW 2021 leadership team. I am Johanna. I am the director of social media. We also have Carissa on the call today.
Hi.
Are there any other leadership members on the call today here? Not that I see, but here are the rest of our leadership team. We work really hard to put on these events, as well as, just keep the community going strong, even through the pandemic. We're very social. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at WWCode DFW, and then on LinkedIn and Facebook at Women Who Code DFW. In terms of our YouTube videos, you can find most of the stuff from the last year on Women Who Code Global's YouTube page, and that's because the way we upload our videos, it goes straight to their account. So if you're ever looking for any of our content specifically that we've done the last year, it'll be at their YouTube page. Anything before that is at Women Who Code DFW's page. But if you ever have anything you want tagged, or if you tag it and you want it to be seen, we're happy to reshare it, retweet it, and all that fun stuff. So for DFW, we have some future events coming up. Next week, we have an info session as well as a networking hangout. Be really casual, just an opportunity to get to know us one-on-one-ish through video chat, as well as just know some information about what you can do as a part of our network. On April 6th, we have a UX overview with Melissa Dell. And then on April 22nd, we will have a tech talk on contributing to open source from a GitLab employee. But in general, all events right now for Women Who Code are online and remote. And therefore, of the over 70 networks that we have, in terms of the webinars, hackathons, workshops, and all of that, you can find them online at womenwhocode.com/digital. All the events will be listed within what their time zone is, so just something to keep note of. You can also get all of this sent to your inbox by joining the digital events mailing list. And you can probably find most of the events that happen on the YouTube page up to a week after it occurs. Just as a quick, to show you what that will look like, this is what the page of womenwhocode.com digital will show you in terms of information. And it will often take you to the meetup page specifically the same way as you RSVP'd for this event tonight. So we are a nonprofit, and in terms of our network, we serve about over 5,000 members, which is really awesome. But as a result, we do need all of your help to survive and thrive. All the links that will be mentioned can be found in the link tree shared in the chat by Melissa just a moment ago. And the biggest thing that can really help us thrive is attend your events. So congratulations, you're doing that tonight. We aim to impact the most possible people. So thank you for being a part of this event. If you feel you have extra time and would like to give back with your time and help, we're happy to have any volunteers. There's a volunteer form you can fill out and even specify what types of things you would like to help out with, or even possibly join leadership. If you don't have time, but you have some money you are willing to share with our network, that would be greatly appreciated, as we will eventually go back to in-person events and we will need to afford pizza and other food options for our events because they often take place during dinner time. But some free options include joining our Slack group and getting to know us so we can get to know you. And also share your thoughts and ideas with us via the survey, or you can even DM us directly. If you feel that you have some expertise that would be great to share in the tech field or generally career development, we would be happy for you to give us a talk, our whole network that is, and we have a form also in that link tree where you can fill out interest. You don't even need a specific topic if you don't have it yet, but you're just interested in talking, and we'll contact you and work with you from there. And by doing one or more of these things, you are helping to build a community, and really by that, you're also combating imposter syndrome together. So that brings us to tonight's topic, which is imposter syndrome in the 2020s. So we're in this unprecedented time where we're living through historical events almost every month. That's crazy. So I first and foremost want to give credit to Haley Demos for the idea and creation of this panel. Imposter syndrome is something where when you search it, you will find countless definitions. So this is why we will be having a discussion tonight in order to kind of make our way through what imposter syndrome is for a few professional women within tech, and also the ways that they are, actively combating it on a regular basis. So without further ado, I will be turning over this panel to Shilpa Veer, a seasoned professional within the product manager space, as well as working as a product manager at Google. Shilpa? One second. You're muted right now. One second. All right, can you talk now?
Yes, can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Perfect. Hello and welcome to the panel, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here. A little bit about myself. My name is Shilpa, as Joanna mentioned. I'm currently a PM at Google, and prior to that, I've worked in a few other companies and a bunch of startups. And going back in time, I cannot tell you what I would have given to have a supportive community like this when I first started in this journey. I started my career as number 5 employee in a startup, most of it men, by myself, fresh out of college. And I was so eager to learn and deliver that I am told that I used to speak about coding when I was sleeping in my dreams. And so, but I do distinctly remember feeling very, very alone in this whole group. So huge kudos to everybody who's coming together over here and helping each other out. And I have some amazing ladies here who have a wealth of information and amazing experiences to share with you. So without further ado, I'm going to invite them one by one to come on up and introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Megan.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Megan. I have been in the tech realm for about 7 years now and been doing development for 5. I currently am a software engineer at Availity, and imposter syndrome has been something that has impacted my life since college. So I'm excited to share my experience with all of you today.
Thank you, Megan. Elizabeth.
Oh, hello, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Portilla. I'm from Peru. I'm currently in New York. And I've been working in tech since 2011, basically 10 years already. During my career, I've been doing different things, since project management, but also development, also teaching, coaching, and I feel that I had some experience that I can share with you, how to overcome imposter syndrome yourself and how to find allies between your friends to overcome that. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa?
Hello, my name is Melissa Conrad. I am a web developer for a West Coast furniture chain. I work in their IT department, and I've been doing that for about 6 years. And I'm here to discuss imposter syndrome with you all.
Thank you. Patty?
Hi, y'all. I'm Patty McClutchy. I'm currently a design technologist at a consulting firm called Project 202. I've been in the industry for about 10 years, started out in the design world and have transitioned over into development. And that has left me being the only female on a lot of all male development teams throughout my 10 years in tech. So I feel very strongly about imposter syndrome and how to combat that. So I'm excited to talk about it tonight.
Thank you. Amanda?
Hey guys, I am Amanda Viola and I run business development for an all-electric rideshare company. And I have been selling in technology for the past 8 years. And I also sit on the advisory board for Girls in Tech, the Dallas chapter. And I definitely have experienced imposter syndrome, just being a male-dominated industry, naturally just not seeing representation of myself in the roles, and not being as technical as I think I need to be. I definitely experienced imposter syndrome, so I'm excited to share my experience and how I have conquered it.
Thank you. So before we get into your experiences, I want to take just a little bit of step back and just agree on what is imposter syndrome. How do you define it? What do you think goes in there? Because I keep hearing this word, and sometimes I don't know if it is really imposter syndrome or if it's something else. And so, Melissa, I would like to call on you and ask about, how do you define imposter syndrome?
So to me, imposter syndrome is just feeling really anxious and doubting my abilities, just not feeling like I don't have the necessary skills for the task, or I'm less capable of the people around me, or the people around me are more highly skilled or accomplished, so they deserve these opportunities. I feel like maybe my ideas and my skills are not worthy of other people's attentions, or someone's going to discover that maybe I shouldn't be here. And even if I get or receive accomplishments, these feelings, it just doesn't get put to rest. And I frequently doubt myself privately because nobody really voices how they feel. Like we don't share these feelings with each other. And that's what it means to me.
Yeah, that feeling like maybe you got lucky. And funny story is when I joined Google and we had this 2-day new hire orientation, every speaker that came up and said, you might be feeling like you got lucky, but no, you need to be here. So I think it probably is even more pronounced when people around you are highly accomplished, and it's very easy to feel that way. But I'm curious, and I'm going to open it up to everybody on the panel here. Do you agree with Melissa's definition of imposter syndrome? Is there something you'd like to add to what she has said?
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think imposter syndrome, it's also a mindset and self-talk. So really tackling how you're communicating with yourself and your voice to yourself. I think that part of it is perfectionism too, kind of, you didn't do it right, or, you don't know enough. That is self-talk. So I think that is a large part of it.
Absolutely. So why don't we actually go and ask you your own experiences with it? So I'd like to call upon Elizabeth first. Elizabeth, tell me about your experience, your journey with imposter syndrome.
Personally, when I was growing up, I had like this overachieving mindset. Like every time I set up a goal and try to go with all of that like self willpower through this to this goal. And what happens over time is that you get told so many times that you can do it, more in those male-dominated like fields. Like you can do it, or you shouldn't be doing this. You should be more quiet. You shouldn't be laughing this way. Maybe they undertone your comments over time that builds up in your own self, like I was saying. And image happened between my first job, even like when I got my first, I also at first a blessing. Like I didn't deserve that, and it was it started as something cute, like to tell myself, like, oh, I got all of these blessings, like changing jobs, getting to know how to negotiate my income even was an accomplishment for me at the time. But I didn't recognize that as an accomplishment. I started recognizing that as blessings, and it's cute for a time, it's even naive, but at the same time, it diminishes your own self-talk about your hard work, your own growth over time. So that started in my first job, but it went growing into even like when I was coaching students in an organization called Laboratoria. Basically, a laboratory is a bootcamp for women to get into tech. It's located in various countries around South America and Latin America. And I get to understand through them that it was not a blessing. It was like my own self-growth, my own work that gave me these opportunities, and also that I had enough criteria at the time to take them or just like discard them. But that self-talk also underdeveloped something that is over time creates this negative self-talk. Like when something is wrong, it's like, I knew it that I couldn't do it. And it's like you over time create this super negative self-talk that if you are in a toxic environment, that happened to me once, when you're in a toxic environment, these self-talks become super negative. And sometimes for you is believing that it's normal, because you start believing this narrative, even though that narrative has been imposed to you through the time in this male-dominated field. But maybe you're good, you're super good. And that's why you need to create this, more than friendships, allies that could mirror what you're doing, what you're creating, and that create a little self-space, even if it's a super toxic environment. Create a pocket of self-space where you can mirror what is happening. Like, yo, I feel this way. If the person where you have this safe space feels the same way, it's like, yo, this is a toxic environment where we need to be out of here in a way, or maybe we need to move on to do. Like in my case was like an exit strategy. But sometimes it's better just to live and live, like leave the place and live your life in a happy life. But yeah, that has been so far. I don't know if that's something that can relate with you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. A bunch of things that jumped out at me, and a few things that I like to highlight here, and I want the other panelists to think about if they would like to speak on that in a minute. Is number one, you said blessings versus accomplishment, and I think that is such a powerful way to frame. In one, when you're saying accomplishment, you're giving yourself power, versus in blessing, you're saying you got lucky and something outside of your effort got this to you. And it is such an apt way of thinking about it. So I'd like the other panelists to think about it. The other thing that you mentioned was negative self-thoughts. And it is common, but when you're alone, and if you don't know who to talk to, these can just kind of self-feeding that cycle. Very, very true observation there. And then that leads to believing things are normal because you don't have a baseline, or you don't have somebody to validate that again. So now this is where, back in my career when I used to feel alone, if you had somebody you could possibly go to, and then beautiful words around exit strategy. So I'll ask the other panelists to think about that and have some thoughts ready while we go to Patty and hear her story about imposter syndrome.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually have a lot of thoughts about that negative self-talk, Elizabeth. It's definitely something that I have experienced through my time being in technology. I started out as a designer in a marketing department and managed WordPress websites and had to do development. And I was interacting with a lot of men in the same industry as me, and we were going up against the same type of jobs. And they had computer science degrees or 10 years experience doing web development. And even though I had clients who loved me and recruiters calling after me, I would look at what I was doing and say, well, I don't have the experience that they have. And, I'm just a designer. I'm not a developer. I'm just a designer. And a lot of times the way that my colleagues would speak about me would be like, oh, she's a designer, but she can code. And so their words definitely affected how I felt about myself. And when I would think about, okay, well, I want to go find another job. I want to pursue development. That's where I'm passionate. And when I would start learning more challenging languages like JavaScript or focusing on React, if I wouldn't get something right away, I would say, well, I'm not smart enough, or I wasn't good at math. So, I'm not going to be good at this. I shouldn't do it. And I thankfully go to therapy. I'm so pro therapy. Everyone should go. And that was something that I spoke about a lot with my therapist. And she was just like, what would you say to 13-year-old you if they were saying these things? And I would never tell 13-year-old me that she's not good at math or she's not smart enough to learn JavaScript. And eventually that type of thought process just is automatically where I go to. And now in my job where I have tons of support from everyone that I work with, and I try, I'm learning React more and I'm leading a team of developers. I have support to lean on to say, like, I'm feeling imposter syndrome, I'm feeling vulnerable. And I can lean on them to then have a second round of cheerleaders for myself besides just my own self to say, like, okay, I'm not going to have this negative self-talk. 13-year-old Patty does not need to hear this. And that has probably been the most powerful thing for me, that I've been able to get through this imposter syndrome thing. Even when I think I'm done with it, I'm still not done with it. It's always there, but I have people around me in my job that reiterate to me all the time if I'm like, oh, this is a dumb question. When I'm trying to learn something, they're like, Patty, you're not dumb, you are learning. Like, stop thinking these things about you. And that, you know, has honestly been such a great help throughout my career.
Yeah, 13-year-old Patty would be so proud of you. Amazing things you said. You talked about us getting our identity from what others talk about us. She's a designer, but she can code. It's like you're letting other people tell you who you are instead of asking yourself, who am I? But when you get out of that mindset, the amazing things you can do. You talked about therapy, and we'll come back to it and say, if you don't have access to that, who can you turn to? I would invite other panelists to kind of have some thoughts ready on that as well. And I do have a second follow-up question for you. Is it possible that some people might be able to tell their younger self that, no, you're not worthy, because they have just that level of doubt? So would it be more effective if they actually were asked, what would you tell your daughter instead? Do you think that there is going to be a difference in what you tell yourself and tell your daughter? What are your thoughts?
I think you're probably right. There probably is a level of like needing a level of self-worth already about yourself to think about your younger self and say, no, you're good enough. But I also think we speak very differently to our children. And, you know, I know so many mothers who would never discourage their daughters from trying things. So that's also a really great point. And I've also heard that before, you know, like, would you tell that to your daughter or your son, to kind of combat that negative self-talk?
Yeah. So I'd like to open up to all the other panelists and either share your own story about imposter syndrome, or maybe follow up on what Elizabeth and Patty have shared and kind of build on that.
Sure. So I have had a very similar experience to both Elizabeth and Patty. And one of the things that imposter syndrome has sort of crippled me by is giving me panic attacks. So it is something that I have had to really work on, and also +1 for therapy, because it has also contributed to how I am now kind of handling those situations and how I can recover if that happens.
All right, but let me ask this question slightly different way. A lot of times we think we are capable, we think we are fine, and then somebody comes and says, oh, I bet you're feeling like an imposter, or I bet you're feeling like nervous, like, or something. And it's like, should I be? Should I be feeling nervous? Am I not ready? And imposter syndrome, which was not there, has been now thrust upon you. Has any of you had that experience where somebody came and actually made you started doubting your capabilities when you were probably okay, fine? And how did you deal with that?
It actually happened to me. Oh, sorry, but you continue.
I was going to say that like just happened to me like 6 months ago with my job. You know, I was speaking with my mentor about leading a team of developers on a React project, and I am not the most React developer that there is. They definitely had more experience than me, but I had been the longest consultant. I had been in the industry for the longest amount of time, and he was like, you know, I describe you to people as taking on this role as being fearless and so brave. And I was like, am I brave for doing this? I'm just doing my job. Like, this was just, I'm the one that has the most experience working with clients, so it just makes sense for me to lead this team. And you know, he didn't mean it in a way to make me second guess myself, but it really made me think, would they have been in better hands if we would have chosen one of the other developers? And I had to do that as kind of a hot thought record that I'm so used to doing in CBT therapy. Like, okay, well, what is actually true in that statement? And then kind of talk myself down on that statement because it's not true. Just because I took on the lead responsibility does not make me brave or fearless. It just means I'm good at my job and that's why I'm doing it.
And if they didn't believe you, they would not have given you that role, right? And so they agree.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, you were trying to share your perspective as well.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt before. There's a couple of times where I've been in charge of two different teams. One team creating a full curricula for this specific bootcamp at a time, and one time when I was like a specific project. Imposter syndrome happened but different weakness. Like in this environment that was so welcoming, super positive, even like toxic positive sometimes, it's like so positive that you're not allowed to be like the person that says that's not possible at this moment. And it's like too positive. So at that time, when I was doing something like so great, so cool for me, it was like, oh my God, this is the best I can do right now. But I have this second guessing because there was a person telling me like, yeah, but you haven't been like an architect before, or you haven't teach before. So maybe that's why you need to like double check. And I was like, no, I need double check because of this. But at the same time, I started believing that like, maybe I'm not that good of a teacher, or maybe I'm not as good as a coach. And after there was this like feedback review from the students to me. They were so happy with me. I was like, oh my God, how you can be so happy with me? And they understood that I was having so many doubts because this person was telling me that to me in a way to try to encourage me, but at the same time, it was like downgrading my own like esteem at the time. Like it was prior, to be honest, but it kind of helped to undermine my self-esteem. That led me to move to this other environment that I thought it was a learning experience for me, but it turns out being like a learning experience on how not to work in a place like that was a super toxic place. And that sweetness was super weird because in this case, they were like, okay, you've been only 3 months in this company, but you will be the first woman to be project manager in this company. Are you worried about it? Like, what is gonna be worried? I'll be project manager and other stuff. Like, what is the problem? Like, maybe you need to talk like in a different way for these cases because there's like people from where there's a world, and don't be too funny, or don't be too catchy in some phrases. And I was like, okay. Over that time, I was like, maybe I wasn't ready to be a leader. Maybe I don't want to be this leader at that moment. Like I came here to learn stuff. So I don't feel I'm learning enough as a leader. And maybe I'm taking everybody to the iceberg like the Titanic. So I felt like I was like, oh my God, I need to downgrade myself to other stuff. It was like technically okay, I'm gonna be fine. But like it didn't stop there. So there was this at some point I had the panic attacks at work even. I usually had those when I was at school too, but it was at home when I was all alone. And this time happened with everybody around, and I was like just run into the bathroom like, so nobody can see me in my vulnerable moments, or just go into the bathroom to cry. Like, oh my God. Maybe I'm not prepared for this kind of jobs. I was so afraid even to tell other engineers that they were giving them feedback on their code, because they would take it so personal. It's like, yo, this is not about you. This is not your toxic masculinity thing. Your worth is not measured on how good your code is. You're a person. The code is another stuff, and then giving you feedback over the code. But yeah, every time I remember, it's like kind of hard. But sometimes, like, I talk about it in therapy, and I feel like better about it because I even felt super guilty about the things that were happening. Like, I could avoid that. I could have been like a bigger person. I could have like just left at some point instead of staying and trying to fix the things that were going wrong. And when it's trust into you, it's weird because if you don't have the mechanisms that I didn't have at the time, because my mom maybe had this like toxic talk with me when I was a kid too. Like, you just fed on that. And I'm really glad that other people have like really nice talk with their parents. I had some of them too, but there was also some self-doubt that was there when I was a kid, and I didn't realize that, and it just grew into this with these talks that were feeding to me without me realizing even. So
Yeah,
sorry
no,
sorry,
no,
it's too personal.
No. I'm glad you're sharing this, and I'm sorry you had to go through that, but you're better for it. Having gone through it, you're better for it. And now the next time you're going to be in that situation, you will know exactly how to react. In fact, let me give you an opposite side story. I was having a one-on-one with my manager a few years ago where I was asking, hey, I want to manage people. And they said, but you've never managed people before. I said, well, before you became a manager, you didn't either. Right? So yeah, ultimately having gone through the situation and feeling like, yeah, maybe I need to doubt myself. Eventually you'll probably, hopefully, all land in a place where you can turn it around and say, you and me are not very different. You can do it, I can do it better with one hand. Yeah. Let's switch it around and actually talk about some of the people who have been in the industry for a long time. Melissa, Megan, let's start with you guys. And even if you have years of experience under your belt, do you still experience imposter syndrome? And if so, how do you deal with that? So let's start with Melissa first.
Sure. So I've been working in tech for about 6 years, and even just last week, it happened. My manager asked me to join a new testing team, and I immediately said, "Oh, I haven't done this before. I don't know." And he was like, "No, you've done lots of testing before, and you've done it like this way and that way." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, to help me, I just kind of figure out like how to prepare and do my research and what's required. And then I just ask, I always have like a lot of questions. So I just ask the questions that I'm unsure about just to start the conversation and kind of give me relief to relieve my anxiety. And then that's how I build my self-confidence, just kind of practice telling myself that I can do this, and then just do it. Sometimes I'm super nervous, but I know once I get into there, the situation, then I could just overcome and just do it. And then when it's over, I just reflect and revisit, and then you kind of get that positive feedback, and that's how I handle it.
Definitely. And the fact that somebody's coming to you and offering you an opportunity is a sign that they think you're capable. So I think I would, as many questions as you might have, I would recommend everyone to take that as a vote of confidence and start from that place and say, I think they think I can do it. Let's dive deep into it. Let's just fully understand what is being asked here, so we can have a plan to kill it. I mean, in a good way, of course. Megan, what has been your experience with this, and how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, so a good example for me is last year I got borrowed by another team to help them complete some work for about 6 months or so. And while they use React, they also use X-State for state management. And coming on board to that team for a little while at first was just like, I have absolutely no idea if I can do this. I don't know if I can actually help them complete these tasks. I don't know if I'm going to do it on time. And it was definitely a journey to kind of come up with a plan for myself, which is one tool how I use to kind of conquer my imposter syndrome, is a learning plan for me, basically, and just kind of identifying, well, I learn best by, watching videos first and then trying to put it into practice, and then breaking down things into smaller pieces so that I can do a little bit at a time, and I'm applying what I'm learning while I'm going. And that's one tool that I've kind of used to help me through other times. And I still experience it today. Just like Melissa said, even honestly this week, I've experienced imposter syndrome just because of a project I'm working on, and I'm going to be learning React Query. And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea how to use that. So I guess we're going to find out.
Absolutely. So I have a question. Is that really imposter syndrome when you say, I don't know if I can do it? Or is that more like, I don't know enough about this to know that I can do it? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and even Amanda's or anybody else's on this one, as to, is it really imposter syndrome, or is it actually just your own perfectionism, or you think of, I sometimes feel that, oh, I would like to be perfect and I'm not being my perfect self. So here must be imposter syndrome, or I have this, I'm perfectly fine, but there is another person who's better than me. So you know what? Imposter syndrome. So I'm wondering if it's really imposter syndrome, or is it something else that's masquerading as imposter syndrome here?
Yeah, I think it coincides with self-doubt. Unfortunately, society, kind of teaches women to criticize themselves and pick at themselves. And so that, naturally leads to, negative self-talk. And I think they do coincide, because then you eventually feel you don't belong in this space. And I go back to kind of lack of representation, just kind of what I experienced is, I didn't see a lot of females selling. And when I was selling consulting at the time, it was a boys club. Business was made on the golf course and I was not invited. So, it was, I truly didn't see myself there, and that it got to me because, I was doubting, my soft skill abilities that I had. And I knew that what I brought to the table was a little different than, the other salespeople. But I think they do, they coexist for sure. The self-doubt and that talk kind of feeds into the imposter syndrome, and you really just talk to yourself out of, promotions or positions or sales, or, it just kind of all flows in together.
Yeah, it does. It does. And actually, I'd like to go a little bit even earlier in our lives. And I'm going to pose this open question to all 5 of you, whoever wants to go at it. How do you think we get to this point where we are not believing in ourselves? Because when we are born, when we are these 5 or 6 year olds, we think we can do everything, right? We think we are the superheroes and we are gonna go fly over to Mars, set up a medicine hospital over there while raising horses and do amazing. Like, we believe we cannot do one but probably 10 jobs at the same time. My sister, she wanted to be a police inspector, an actress, a makeup enthusiast, and a doctor all in one, right? And she thought she could do it. So where does this switch happen, where here is my confidence going out the door, bite by bite, and something else is coming in? So I'd like you guys to kind of reflect and unpack this a little bit and share your thoughts here.
Yeah.
And it's an open question.
I think it goes back to kind of you being told, be a good girl, kind of that kind of thing of, or, be loud and bold, but not like that, or, take a stance and stand up for yourself, but, don't be, biatch, so again, just back to society, it really is, we get pulled in these directions of look like this, act like this, to get this way, be a lady, be seen, not heard in a sense, or be submissive to a man, especially in business. So I think, and even when we just going back to like when you're little, just, what your parents say to you too, or your aunts and uncles, I had an uncle say, things that I was just made me feel like, oh, well, maybe I just need to be quiet. I'm too loud, sassy, and so it's kind of, I think the communication you hear when you're younger kind of molds that. And then as we grow up, reality and society gets us even more. And we're left to kind of our own devices to kind of mute those voices as much as we can to, become that confident, flourishing, woman that we know we really are, that even we thought we were when we were younger.
Yeah, I totally think that that's a big part of it. I also think that there is a second aspect to it, which is even if we are not being told that do be certain way, the praise that gets showered on a particular stereotype maybe, and makes me start thinking that is better. So when instead of, even if my mom was not saying, and I'm not saying my mom ever said that, but if let's say I'm playing with my sister and I am sitting and my mom is saying, don't make too much noise. She's not saying any of that, but she's telling my sister, what a good girl you are. You're playing quietly. And now I'm all of a sudden, I'm not playing quietly. I'm not a good girl. So I wonder that there is a first half is what you are saying. And then the second half is the fact that we say that is the standard, the gold standard of X, of Y, of Z. This is how a business person looks like. This is how a scientist looks like. This is how an engineer looks like. And you are thinking, I don't see myself there, so I must be not worthy of being there.
Right, and fooling everybody. For a long time, and I heard on a podcast, this was really interesting. They were talking about it, but they said, lean into your imposter syndrome. You fooled them, got them. You're here. I thought that was really an interesting take on it. Right. So I think it's all about your perspective. And I think that comes with time and just work on yourself to kind of change your viewpoint on things. But yeah, you fooled them. You're here.
Does any other panelist would like to add anything to this?
Yeah. So it's important that we don't forget we're in a super system of oppression in different places of the world. So this oppression not only applies on our gender, it's also applying on our racial, in our communities, in our media representation, in our daily life representation. So we've been fed so much over time, like what is the good way of doing things, that it also fits on your own self-talk. It's not only that, for example, in my case, being Latina, growing in Latina community, growing in Peru, this diminishing word talking from religion, for example, is you need to be a good person. But being a good person or being a good woman means very specific things in this Catholic religion, for example. And it's like, okay, you need to be quiet. You need to pray like whatever time. And like, oh my God, if I pray that time, I will be sleeping like in 30 minutes. It's so much like how you dress. Even if when you're victim of different stuff, is you're blamed on your own victimhood. Like raping, for not getting a promotion, for not getting stuff, for being harassed, and it's happened once in one company. Like I was harassed in a Christmas meeting for this company, and I talk about it with human resources, and it's like, but why were you talking with them if they look like a little bit drunk? And it's like, okay, I'm not having this conversation. Like, I'm not having this conversation. Like, what the fuck? Sorry my language. Like, what the fuck? And I couldn't believe that at the time. Like, but they allowed that for the white men on the team. But they if you raise your voice as a woman, you're like targeted as you're too bossy, too loud, or even too aggressive. When it's not the case, like they put these like, how do they call it, these prototypes of how people should be, and if you don't feel in those prototypes, it's like something's happening. So we need to check on ourselves, like also be self-aware. What of those things are imposed on ourselves by the system, by this matrix? And we need to be out of the matrix sometimes and be like, okay, I need to take this, eat that awful papilla that they say they give to the people that is out of the matrix, that think what is happening around you that create this self-talk, like negative or positive, but what is creating that, how you impact that in your daily life.
Yeah, good for you for standing up for yourself with the HR and right. And I think Patty and Megan, you would probably agree that therapy helps you uncover a bunch of those issues and kind of deal with them at a very root level rather than put band-aids on top. So switching gears, we spent some time unpacking the imposter syndrome. We spent some time going into the reasons and how it manifests. Let's actually turn the table around and say, how do we combat it? And so again, I'll start with Megan here. And Megan, share some tools, techniques.
Johanna's smiling because she knows this is my favorite topic. Yeah, so I have a few techniques, and I promise I won't take up all the time with them. One of my favorites is a journal I started about last June, and I have a column where I write down every day something that I have learned, whether it's something related to work or something just in my personal life or a random fact, it doesn't matter, something that I've learned. And I've been able to kind of look back on this journal, and when I'm having a hard time learning something, or I'm taking longer than I originally anticipated learning something, I can look back and go, well, I started JavaScript in college, right? And I thought I was terrible at it there, and I really doubted myself. And now JavaScript is my comfort zone. So it's fine if it took me 3 months to learn X state, like I'll just get better at that. And same with everything I learn after that. It just gives me a foundation to reflect on whenever I need that back. The other tools that I use regularly due to therapy, like breathing techniques, I've even kind of come up with positive affirmations for myself. I know some people hate those, some people like those, but I have taken some time to kind of dig deep and figure out what exactly are the things that I've seen consistently cause me to have imposter syndrome, and what are some affirmations that I can come up with to kind of help me reset my mindset. And those are kind of my main tools.
Excellent. I actually will +1 on that journal. I don't do journal, but what recently, and I found it quite unexpectedly. I was, a while ago, I was looking to change my roles, and I put together a resume, which we all do. But then I thought it's not really communicating the visual nature of the work I've done, which is a lot of UX facing work. And so I put together this visual resume. And as I was going through it, I was like, dang, I have actually done quite a bit of work. And it's so easy to forget in your day-to-day and feel that, oh my God, this is the first time I'm doing it. But looking at it, so then I actually made it, and it's there on my computer now. And whenever I'm feeling doubtful or anything, I can just take a look at all the work I've done. Like, I've done this. This is nothing, right? So huge +1 to that. Patty, what are some of your favorite techniques?
Sure. Yeah. So through therapy, my therapist actually made me buy this book called Mind Over Mood. I have it right here because I knew I was going to talk about it. I am obsessed with thought records, which is similar to what Megan talked about with like a journal, but like there's a specific column structure that you use for thought records. And it's completely changed the way that I handle situations. I used to have panic attacks. I literally fell off a cliff, rock climbing, having a panic attack because of my like imposter syndrome of, oh, I can't do this thing. Just using this tool, now I don't even have to write it down because I know the steps to go through, but like you address what the situation is, you address what your mood is, you address your automatic thoughts, and then you say, but what's actually happening here? Like actually stating the facts of the situation that just happened. And that has completely changed the way that I handle every situation in my life, because I immediately go through my like hot thought record in my head really quick. Is this what actually happened? Or is this just me reacting to the situation and starting to have that anxiety/panic attack thing happen? And I could not recommend going through that process more. It's so empowering and grateful, and the book is super easy to read. And
Thank you. Thank you. Amanda, why don't you share some of your favorite techniques?
Yeah, so I really think this is, super cathartic to hear how everybody handles it and works through it. I similarly, so what I do is I identify 5 things I know I'm good at, random, doesn't have to be work related, doesn't have to be, it could be personal, have great handwriting, anything. So just identify 5 things that I'm great at. I also think it's super important to surround yourself with a supportive circle of friends and work friends. I'm very grateful to have a really great foundation of supportive women that don't deal with, negative self-talk. If I, say things, they're very quick to correct me. And we all, work collaboratively together to uplift and highlight each other's, assets. I think that's super, super important. And I don't think it's not conceited, to talk about, what you're great at, highlight what you're great at, talk about it, express it, and be comfortable. I think we're so quick to say, oh, I can't do this, or I'm bad at this, so nobody else says it first, right? So I think, be even more comfortable and confident with talking about what you bring to the table, and you bring a lot to the table. And I think it's identifying, if I'm feeling like I didn't get this project, I didn't, get this proposal, I'm feeling a little down, but I do have A, B, and C. It's kind of like, the grateful, being just, having gratitude and being grateful for what you do have. I think that is retraining your brain to think positive thoughts and to, actively work on that. And also too, there was a tool, I wrote it down, that they shared. It was called a thought ladder, which I thought this was really interesting. But you start with just identifying one thought, and it moves you through this process. But I wanted to share the link with y'all, if I can find it again. This was something that I just thought was really great. So it's www.redesignyourmind.com/imposter syndrome. So this will take you through the process of retraining that thought, of that, that either that self-doubt or that negative talk. it works you through that. And so I thought that was a really cool tool to utilize too. So I wanted to share.
You're still muted.
Uh-oh. I'm muted. Oh yeah, I'll share. Yeah, it's www.redesignyourmind.com/imposter syndrome. And it's called the Thought Ladder tool.
So Melissa, I wasn't sure. Did you want to add some of your techniques and tools to this? Okay. Because I just thought that these three answers were so comprehensive. I wasn't sure if there was anything left after to add. But let's switch gears. Elizabeth, I would like you to talk about how can one, I mean, these ladies have, all of you guys have a lot of experience, right? But looking back at your journey, if you can share, how do you share or how do you overcome imposter syndrome when you're just starting out, when you don't have any professional experience and you don't have those laurels to look back at, or these support circles who can manage these thoughts? How can you overcome that, or how have you helped somebody else overcome in their career or imposter syndrome in their career?
First comes to the point where you understand that you're having this problem. Like, you can solve a problem you don't know you have. Like, it's very important that we have and we spread self-awareness and awareness about the problem of imposter syndrome in e-commerce and everyone that is in the tech industry, especially because everything we do is technically intangible. So it's difficult to like measure what you're doing, compare yourselves. Like, everything is very even super subjective. So it's easier to be like, oh my God, I don't know what is happening here. I don't know why this error is coming. I just Google it in like Stack Overflow. I paste the solution. Am I still an engineer if I just solve everything like that? And the answer is yes. We got that. That's how you solve problems, like looking for answers. And if you don't find the answer, you create a new one. We're in this kind of industry that everything, if it doesn't exist, we can create a new solution, or we can create a bigger problem that also has happened before. But in e-commerce, you're gonna see some things that sometimes it's more like you're mirroring, you're reflecting on yourself in the past, like, oh, when I was younger, I felt this way. But it's a lot of sitting yourself a little bit with a little bit of time with them and trying to create this safe space where you can actually hear them talk about themselves for a time, like 10 minutes. Just let them talk about themselves. How have you seen your growth in this last week? You remember you couldn't do this like 3 weeks ago, but now you do it like it's nothing. We have a safe word for this thing even. We don't need it anymore. Like, there's a bunch of things that when you can have this time, a specific time, like you can even set, if you're mentoring or coaching someone else, just set one-on-one time with this person and give them the time, like give them like 10 minutes, 15 minutes just to reflect on themselves out loud. And you're gonna notice maybe there's a negative self-talk, maybe there's a false self-belief they have about how they're doing on this environment, and maybe it's totally like it's even our responsibility to tell them like, maybe you judging yourself too hard. Remember this journey, remember these moments. Like in the boot camp, when I was working at the boot camp, it was so funny at the beginning because it was like, oh my God, I think they probably they're mistaken. I don't belong here because there's a rigorous process to, to enter this bootcamp. And I was like, no, like, of course no. Like, someone wrote this book called Mindset by Carol Derek in the comments, and it's funny because we used a lot of growth mindset, and in growth mindset you always are learning. There's nothing you can't learn. The thing is time always. Time is a valuable resource that is not going to go back to you. It's not like it's renewable, but you always have the time as long as you're not dead. So everything is learnable at some point. You need to find what is the best way for you to learn. But it's important also find these moments of journey. And I'm really glad that Megan brought out this technique of the journaling, because journaling is, I mean, I tried and I am so bad at it. But when you see your repositories, your old repositories, and you see your content, I was so bad at this at that time. But now I can correct myself. I can correct, I've gone through this journey where I get like, oh my God, I now I can give feedback to myself in the past if I could. And it's a beautiful journey. Learning is always a beautiful journey. It's a chaotic journey. It doesn't need to be sometimes, because there's some learning paths that some other people could put for you. But at the same time, learning is very subjective, personal experience. Somebody could tell you like, yo, reading this book, you just learned like 5 wonderful things about the world. And maybe it's not your way of learning, just reading it. Maybe you need to experience it. Maybe you need to try it in different ways. Maybe reading it as full is not your way. And because learning is a personal experience, you need to find your own way of learning and follow this journey. We're always learning. This is the industry where learning is like a necessity. We're gonna keep learning from ourselves and from the things around us.
Yeah, like Megan was saying earlier, like everybody learns differently, and she knows her learning style. So I think it's really important to know how do you learn and make sure you're supported in that learning style. A couple things that you said really stood out to me. And I want everybody in this audience to take the first one home with them, which is, if you don't find answer, create it. That is such an empowering statement. You're not waiting for permission from anybody. You are on your journey. If you find what you need, great. Otherwise, you build it yourself. So really, really good thought over there. And the other thing is, yes, everything is learnable. And I think acknowledging whether you want to learn it, and that it's a choice that you're making because your time is better spent elsewhere. It's not that you can't learn it. It's not worth the effort for the goal that you have in mind or the path you are on, and actually spending that time learning something else as a conscious choice, not because, oh, I can't learn it. I think that's great and empowering thought as well. Patty, I'd love to hear the same from you as to how can somebody who does not have professional experience overcome imposter syndrome, and have you helped somebody else as well?
Yeah, actually, Elizabeth touched on this a little bit too. She was speaking about mentoring and being a mentee or mentor to someone else. And I think the most important thing that I would tell my younger self getting into my career and my mentees who I've been able to share time with is asking for help is not a weakness. I think that's something that most professional individuals do not see value in unless they're doing it actively. You know, I think that's the one thing that I've learned from my my bosses throughout my career is that asking for help has helped them help me and helped me grow. And it's the one thing that I hear the most about from the people that I work with on a daily basis is like, oh, Patty's great because she knows when to ask for help. And I think that's something that we as individuals need to realize, that asking for help is not a weakness. Leaning on others is not a weakness or means you don't know everything. I think that's another thing in technology, right? We have this idea in our mind that we need to know everything about every language, about every piece of JavaScript. And that's impossible for us, right? We have lives. And that's the one thing that my current role has really taught me is taking time to learn the things that you don't know. Like, you have to fail a couple times to succeed. And being comfortable with failure is something that you have to learn how to do early on in your career. When you're a designer, you have to go to design critiques and have people rip apart your designs. It's very similar in the tech industry to have to like try and fail and fail and fail until you finally do succeed. And that's something that, you know, as I've worked with junior designers and junior developers through my career, I've been able to kind of pass along that learned wisdom that I have, because, you know, we're stronger when we're together. You know, I've been very lucky to have great mentors in my career and have great people to lean on at every company that I've been a part of. And it's just, that's probably the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself as a new person coming into the profession, is to really latch on and find the way that you learn best, like everyone has said, and then ask for help when you need it.
Yeah, if I can be one little bit here, I think that was a place where I struggled quite a bit, because asking for help did not come naturally to me. And looking back, when I started asking for help is when my growth started happening at a much faster pace. And it is not a sign of weakness. And some people get to that point really fast. Some people take their time getting to that point. But once you get to that point, you can unlock the doors on your learning and growth quite well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I have, Amanda, I have a question for you. A lot of times, and you're in a hiring manager position, and a lot of times we don't even apply to roles because we don't think we fit there. How should one talk to themselves in such a situation? How should you go about making that decision of whether or not you should apply for a job? And once you get it, what do you do?
Sure. I say apply for the job. So many men, I don't know the statistic, but will apply for the job and they don't meet like 3/4 of the skill set. Their confidence, you know, in the job before they even get the job is there. So I say apply for the job. I even have to say this to myself because I look at the job description and I'm like, oh, I'm not that technical on this, and this. But my go-to is highlight your strengths and what you bring to the table outside of the job description. And I mean soft skills, I mean your network, especially in sales, like that is what you are. Your relationships, your character, all of that, your emotional intelligence, and also to come with a plan, you know, depending on where you're at in the cover letter or something, you know, have a plan to where they can visualize you already working for that company. You know, so for me, I would put in a 30-day, I would say I would have come with a 30-day action plan to, you know, capture these accounts, you know, put in play a plan for them to already visualize you being in that company, in that position. But I say play to your strengths, apply for the job anyways. especially for me. I've grown to be more technical in roles, but that was, off of curiosity, off of, having a great network that I could lean on to help me build those skills. And shoot, there's job descriptions that I, applied for that I would shoot over to a friend, be like, hey, can you help me mold my resume? Like, me, it's hard for me to talk about myself. Women have that problem sometimes. And me in particular, it is. And, help, me, in business, help me mold my resume to meet this job description. So lean on your network. And I think, I can be your network. If you needed any help, let me know. I know a lot of different people. So leverage me, leverage your resources. But just play to the strengths, and know what you are capable of, and know what you are, what you bring to the table is unique and different. And that is why you deserve at least a shot, just like anybody else.
Thank you. Elizabeth, I know you have a couple thoughts to share on this as well.
Yeah, personally, every time I'm like looking for a new job or new horizons in time, I'm always doubting myself a lot. Like, I will be able to fit this position. And as Samantha said, this is something that we already said to our mentees before when I was coaching and teaching. It's like, but just apply, just apply for it. Worst case scenario, they let them like filter you, don't filter yourself before applying. So let them do their job in filtering. If something comes up, it's cool. Always also ask for feedback. There's different process you're going through, and sometimes you're like, oh my God, maybe I did something wrong in the interview, because, and that's why I'm not getting this position. Or maybe I did something wasn't right in the code. So always after the interview, or always after like any communication that you feel that is meaningful during this process, try to ask for feedback about it. Sometimes many of the times, don't feel discouraged if you get a no, because many of the times it's something different. In my case, for example, I'm getting like a lot of no's right now, and it's because there's no visas available. It's like, okay, we don't have visas now, so we can't contract you. So, right. So the visa is a problem now for me, but at the same time, like, I'm asking for feedback, so I'm able to continue in this journey of looking for new jobs if I need to. But it's important you ask for feedback. Some of this feedback is going to help you grow. And also, I used to do this thing when I said like I had a spreadsheet with every process I was going through. And it's like I checked what part of the process I was and the feedback they gave me. So if I need to double check like what went wrong in this one, what I could be better, what I could do better, what I need to learn, maybe what I need to practice. Because even if they call you, you're gonna feel sometimes this imposter syndrome. Like, yo, Google is calling me. Oh my God, it's Google. Like, am I prepared for that? And like, maybe you are, but you don't know. You don't know until you're there. Yeah, even if you have really, go for it. Like,
no, actually, I was saying that I actually have a story to share.
Go for it.
Outside of work, I actually teach product management, and I also am an job interview coach. And so I work with a lot of clients who are going through interview processes. And I often would notice that men think that, oh my God, how can they say no to me? I'm perfect for this job. And the women are not even trying to apply, thinking, I don't think I'm ready. I have a baby. I have this, I have that. And most recently, I've had to push 2 women to apply, one to Uber, one to Google, because they're like, oh, maybe we should wait for a few months. And I'm like, I think you're ready. Go try it now. And what's the worst that can happen? They're going to say no. You're going to collect that data, and we're going to try again whenever that blackout period starts, because you're anyway saying I'll apply next year. Go for it now. And guess what? The woman, one got Uber, I got a message this morning. The other one got Google. I got a message last week. So it's like they don't even think they have the time, or they feel that they self-select themselves out of this whole process. So yeah, that makes sense. And feedback, of course. I actually always say, if you are willing, feedback is a gift that somebody is giving you, because they are taking time to help you get better. Who would want to do that unless they care about you? So if we change our mindset around, oh, I'm getting feedback, they must hate me too, and they're giving me feedback, they want me to get better, they must care about me, it starts becoming a gift that you can use. Okay, going on, we are all meeting virtually today, and given the pandemic, so much social distancing, work from home, everything that we know about our workspace has pretty much changed. And so this is a question that I'm gonna, if time permit, I might come to all of you guys, but I want to know, how has your life changed during pandemic, and how has your imposter syndrome gotten better, worse? How has your coping mechanisms changed? How are you connecting? Like, how is this whole thing working out for you? And I'll start with Megan here.
Yeah, so I think one big difference, especially since we've all gone virtual, is that when we were meeting in person, whether you're at school or you're at work or a co-working space, anywhere, or at a meetup, you can visually see people working with each other on a problem, or you can visually see someone kind of perhaps struggling with a problem and maybe waiting for help. But virtually, that's all kind of, it's taken away from you, right? So it's a whole new level of isolation that you can't observe that anyone else is having, a hard time learning this or a hard time with this particular task. It's just out of your view. So at least for me, sometimes that kind of heightens my imposter syndrome, because I'm not immediately thinking about how other people are also struggling with things, because I can't visually see that. So through this whole virtual catastrophe, I guess, catastrophe isn't a good word, but transition is, like, especially at work, if I'm having a problem, I try to kind of have a Zoom meeting, and just being able to have coworkers or even friends, family, to express what I'm feeling and my concerns to is extremely helpful. And it's, sometimes when you're comfortable being vulnerable with someone, they can be comfortable being vulnerable back. And then you've got people saying, well, hey, you know what, also, I'm struggling with this as well. Or, I've been working on this for a while and I'm having a hard time with it. And maybe, you can help out with their problem. They can help out with your problem.
Oh, I was in mute. So I was agreeing with you emphatically. Melissa, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic.
To kind of piggyback on with what Megan was saying was the feedback. Working from home, I build a lot of in-house applications, so kind of programs used by other parts of the corporate office. And when I was in the office, if you just pass somebody, or you could watch them look at a new feature and they light up and see how awesome it is. But if you're working from home, no one has really taken the time. Like, my manager will say, oh, thanks for working on that. But then the next time I hear something is either a new project or there's a bug that I need to fix. And I really do appreciate the feedback, but it's just not the same. So connecting virtually just through, like, the Women Who Code Slack. I'm part of this Moms in Tech group on Facebook, or I will direct message or video chat friends and coworkers. just kind of build confidence, and we just it helps me like increase my awareness, and it's just I don't know, learning about other people's experiences and what they're dealing with, especially during the pandemic, it's really helped me.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree about the fact that just like feedback, the positive vibes that come from the excitement that you get when you get that reaction is just motivates you to do so much more. Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. Patty, what's been your struggle throughout this whole thing?
Yeah, I've definitely been struggling to connect with other developers and do pair programming, because that's something that I benefit from, learning new languages and making sure I understand something. So that's something that I've been struggling with, but the way that I've been kind of combating that is we set up like a weekly development production meeting to discuss how each of the developers would go about addressing a problem. And that's been really helpful for my learning. It's not helpful for my Zoom fatigue, but it's been great to at least get some FaceTime with other developers. The one thing I will say about Zoom, though, for me and working from home and remotely away from everyone, is that I think it's really helped my confidence when I'm in a meeting with my clients and with other developers. I'm less likely to not speak up in a room full of people at a table. But if something about Zoom, something about not having to be there in person and the like anxiety of speaking in front of, 10 developers who know way more than me, it's just been so kind of refreshing to hide behind my computer and, unmute myself and speak my truth in meetings. I've really enjoyed it.
And yeah, question, do you keep your camera on or off while you're doing that?
I do keep my camera on because I think I have a better time interpreting people when their cameras are on. I find it really hard to give and receive feedback when it's just the like Zoom square with your name or your photo on it. So thankfully, the majority of the time we all have our cameras on. Very rarely do we not have our cameras off.
Yeah, that makes sense, because one of the things that I've struggled in this whole Zoom, actually we use Google Meet. I work at Google, so guys, promoting Google Meet right there. But the thing that I've struggled is that people find it okay to turn their camera off, and then you are not getting that vibe and you're not seeing their reaction. You don't know how you're saying things and how it's landing. I actually was speaking at UC Davis last month where I was giving a workshop on interviewing, and I specifically asked the students to turn their camera on because I feed off of that vibe. And so let me ask that question to Amanda. Amanda, what has been your Zoom experience, and do you run into that issue? I don't know if you do, but I'll just ask anyways.
Yeah, no. So I was field sales before COVID hit. So I was always work from home, travel. I'm a people person and I love face-to-face meetings. I miss that because in sales, it's a lot of reading the people and the body language, and it is hard to convey, things that you can push or, things you need to pull back on when they don't want to turn their camera on or simply don't want to meet you on Zoom. It was rough, in the beginning. I think for me, just I am expressive and I am communicative, and I think that has helped. But it's hard to read people and get a vibe off of somebody when, so much is just on what they feel, if you are negotiating or you're dropping some hard truths. Like I had to have a hard conversation today and cameras on, so you can see the seriousness in my face. So, but I think like I really had to just get more comfortable with being on camera. That was something I just didn't like. And the organization that I was with previously forced us to always have camera on, which made me learn really fast, just to be comfortable with it. And I mean, it's not so, now I roll with it. I think this is like Zoom number 3 million. But I think like, just really getting comfortable. And I think it comes with time, for me getting comfortable in front of the camera. And, I think there are certain people that are, open to safe distancing, and like, at a WeWork or something, that's where we work out of. So we have a, space that we can spread out and things. So that's great. For those instances, we mask up, and that's helpful. But I really miss the in-person meetings and the face-to-face meetings. I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. So I love to, interact with people and really, get into the groove with people in meetings. And with, the virtual, you lose a lot of that, but I try to just kind of push through and keep with it.
So follow-up question to you. So you are a people person like me, and we want to feed off of that camera energy. But when it's not there,
yeah,
and if you are having some sort of doubts, like imposter syndrome and all, and you have no way of knowing if you're landing correctly, and you're saying maybe they've already tuned out, maybe they're not paying attention, what am I doing, maybe I should stop talking, this presentation is not going as right as, like all those thoughts that are coming to your head, how are you staying on track, or how are you talking to yourself, or dealing with any of those negative thoughts at that time?
Right. Well, actually, I had that happen to me last Friday. It was a lengthy call, and I kind of was like, is my goal of this call correct? I was like, is this the right guy? I was really doubting myself in the conversation, because he was talking and sharing, which was fantastic. You want them to talk, and but it wasn't really in the goal of the direction that I initially thought the meeting was called. So I completely had to pivot. So and he wasn't on video, and I was on my phone at the time because I was en route. And so that was, maybe shame on me, for taking that kind of a call in that manner. But I did pull over and kind of, have more of a focus so I could gather and pivot the conversation. But yeah, I really doubted that I had put together the right call and put my team members on that were right. So it just, it's so hard to navigate, but I really just was able to pull it together. Just was like, okay, because I knew there was going to be value out of the call. And I think that's one thing, is just like making sure you at least take, a next step away. For me, that's always my big thing. Like, what's the next step? What's our action item out of this? So just reverting back to kind of how I handle, any kind of call like that. So really saved me. And so, but yeah, it threw me off for sure, because I didn't think I was, because my business partner was texting me. He's like, what is our goal? So he kind of planted that seed for me. I was like, what is our goal? So, but yeah, I think I'm always going to pull something together. And I think that's my faith in myself. Faith and worry can't coexist. So, I'm confident in my skill set and knowing that I'll find value in what I'm doing, no matter what. So I think that's something that I just kind of work on and hold true to.
I love the line that you just said, faith and worry cannot coexist. And I didn't exactly stumble on this, but years ago, a family member of mine who's a chronic worrier, but also chronically faith, like have their own beliefs and faiths. And I say, well, you have this much faith. Why don't you believe on this higher power to help out? They said, yeah, I do. And I said, then why are you worrying? So it just reminded me when you said faith, and this is such a beautiful line, faith and worry cannot coexist.
Yeah,
And if
my
you believe
mom
in yourself,
would tell me that because I worry wart, anxiety through the roof, perfectionist, I'm all of it, check the boxes. And so, you know, I really have to hone in on, you know, if you have faith in yourself, there is no room for it. You can't worry. There's no room for it. So just knock it off.
great. I'm actually going to invite all of the listeners here to get their questions ready because we are about to go into a Q&A section. And while you are preparing your questions, I'd like all of these panelists to share some closing thoughts if they have any. I'm going to go in a round robin fashion, starting with Elizabeth.
Well, to everybody, thank you for joining us. It's not like we're closing, but thank you. Because combating our own imposter syndrome is a daily journey. So if any of those comments helped you in your daily journey to combat your own imposter syndrome, thank you for joining us. And also, like, be kind to yourself. Like, be kind to yourself in the way you talk to you, but also take your time for your own self-care to build your own self-awareness, because that's something that will help you to overcome not only imposter syndrome, but your own self-doubts, your own negative self-beliefs. So let's tackle that as something that is our daily journey to becoming our own better selves in the future. We're already better than we were yesterday. So probably we're gonna do better tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and the end of the day. So be kind to yourself, take time for yourself too. And always have this questioning is important, but there's a point where you have to say, like, this is enough questioning. This is a moment for answers. And when we start questioning, there's moments where we question ourselves. It's supernatural in the human being of questioning themselves, even like to the point when in life, why I need a purpose or something like that. And in the end of the day, nothing needs a purpose, so you can put a purpose on whatever you want to do, because it is there. Sometimes it's just you need to create that purpose for whatever you want to do, and you're totally capable of doing it. So growth mindset.
Awesome. Thank you, Lizzie. We have a question from Marie for all the panelists. Anybody can go. Does anybody have any favorite self-affirmations to overcome imposter syndrome? And thank you to all the panelists here today.
Yeah, actually, I was reading that question and I immediately thought of Megan, and I said, we have to ask Megan because she talked about affirmations. But before that, I wanted to share a couple of my favorite ones. Number one is, and it's not an affirmation, it's more like a belief, which is no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. It's actually a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, but I strongly believe that no matter what the world throws at you, you have a choice of agreeing with it or not agreeing with it, and saying, you know what, thank you for that thought, but it doesn't apply to me, I'm good. You know, that's one. And the second affirmation, it's not an affirmation again, but it's something that I wrote in my journal. And it's actually on page 1 of a journal. And it's actually a Beyonce line from her song, which is, the best revenge is your paper. So I'd share that with, and let's go to Megan. Megan, why don't you share some closing thoughts and some favorite affirmations?
Sure, yeah. So just want to mirror real quick what Elizabeth said. Definitely, I know it's hard in the moment, but try to remember to be kind to yourself. And I hope that all of you are able to take some tools away from our event today to kind of help you move forward. And so I'll share 3 of my favorite ones. They're pretty short. that I say to myself that I've come up with. So it's okay to learn at my own pace. New things take time and practice. Struggling to learn something new does not make me a fraud. And asking for help does not make me any less successful or smart.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. Patty, closing thoughts and affirmations.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. I know we all struggle with imposter syndrome, and as long as we as humans just continue to be vulnerable and understanding, we can address our imposter syndrome and everyone else's imposter syndrome together, because we're all learning. And you know, yesterday is the past, today's new. One of my favorite affirmations is, I put it in the chat. I refuse to let my mind bully my body. And I just really love that little affirmation that my affirmation app sends me every morning.
Thank you. I also think that it's also, I don't let my mind bully my body, but also my stronger part of my mind don't bully my weaker part of the mind. Because I always imagine, do you know how people are sitting and there is a devil on one side and there's an angel on one side? I feel like the devil is the representation of imposter syndrome and your angel is your self-champion. And what I tell my mentees is that the side that you feed will get stronger over time. So you have to keep feeding that angel and keep telling the devil no. And so when you said that, it automatically brought that vision to my mind. Yeah. Melissa.
Yes, I wanted to thank everyone for being here and sharing your time with us. I really appreciate it. And I agree with the part we really need to take care of ourselves to really understand what's going on and how we can overcome our imposter syndrome. And if anyone wants to, feel free to connect. Sometimes it might help just to voice what your concerns are, and I'm a good listener. So yes, definitely feel free to connect.
Thank you. Thank you. Amanda.
Yeah, no, everyone, I just thank you so much for joining us, and then also the questions and panelists sharing, their stories and how they deal with everything. I think, like I said, it's super cathartic to kind of, hear everybody, and kind of it validates your feelings and what you're doing. And so I really appreciate that, everyone opening up and being vulnerable. And, as far as, affirmations, I really look in the mirror and be like, you got this, like every single morning, like you got this, you're here for a reason. And also too, my lasting sentiments for you guys is apply for the job, do it anyways. You either going to learn from it or you're going to get an interview. So just go for it anyways, and go for the promotion, ask for more money, negotiate, and definitely get your paper.
Yes. Elizabeth, we actually started with affirmations after you were done talking. So is there an affirmation that you would want to share?
I remember there's one that I used, but the thing is, try to be consistent with the affirmation. Sometimes we say that one day and it's like, whatever, next day, new day, new self-talk that could be like a negative talk. And for me, the work was to use an affirmation and put it on my reminder, like 21 days, for example. That is like some base time when you can build an habit and a habit. So it's like, okay, 21 days of telling myself that I'm worthy to speak up, I'm worthy to be here, I'm worthy to be heard, and I beneath no one. So there's a bunch of, right now it's a trend in TikTok, if you're on TikTok, you can look for self-love affirmations, and there's a bunch that are like so lovely. And be consistent on it, as you're being consistent on telling yourself like whatever you've been telling yourself. Like, be consistent on being kind to yourself. Be consistent on the affirmation you want to build on. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. At this point, I'll hand it over to Johanna to see if there are any other questions that she would like to moderate over here. And I'd like to thank everyone for their time today. It's been such a pleasure and such a rewarding experience to share notes and even learn some tips and techniques on how we all can feel a little bit more confident and connected and do better. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Other than that, we have one other question within the chat is, how did you tackle imposter syndrome that happens when starting a new job or endeavor? Often new jobs come with uncertainty of our environment and team, which translates to distrust of ourselves to handle things as required. Anybody who feels qualified can speak on it if interested.
Maybe because I started a job in the pandemic. I actually switched jobs during the pandemic, and like, this is the best way I need. This is what I need right now. I need to transition. And the first weeks, even the first months, I was like, oh my God, I feel like a junior again. Everything is new, but they're going to know that I know nothing. And I was like, okay. Because I was doing this thing about meditating, taking the time to just think what is happening, being self-aware about it. It was like, okay, this is what is happening is right now imposter syndrome, because I know the things. I've been teaching these things, I've been sharing these things, I can build things with this. I'm so lazy sometimes that I procrastinate, but I know I can do it. And taking little times in your day to like review what is happening around you and be self-aware if it's something that someone else is imposing on you, if it's something that is just because of the current situation, like changing jobs is a new situation. It's a lot of people. It's like when you start school, like these people is gonna like me or not, I'm gonna be the popular or not. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter much, as long as you're happy. And you need to know if you're happy by being self-aware of what is happening at some point. That's my own personal like experience in the last months.
Yeah, starting a new job, and especially in the pandemic, the few things that I will tell you to do is, number one, make a list of who are the key stakeholders, who are you going to be working with, who are the people whose opinion would matter whether or not you're doing a good job. So whether it's your manager, your manager's manager, your product manager, your program manager, who are the people who would actually have a say on official perf reviews, performance reviews down the road. Identify those. Then identify the second set of people is, who are the people you need to be working very closely with in order to deliver the results that these first set of people want to see. And so these are your allies. These are the people you need to build relationships with. These are the people you need to be friends with and have a good working relationship with. You don't have to be friends with them, or anybody at work actually, but you have to have good working relationships. And then find out what is their communication style and what is your communication style, and how you're going to figure out what is, or how would you create that relationship. And once you know that, it's a matter of executing on it. So that's the number one thing, because you will learn the domain, you will learn the technology, but it takes a while to understand the unspoken rules of the workplace, the non-verbal rules, right? And so take time to build that upfront if you can. That would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Any other comments on that specific topic? Oh, just got a new question from Sydney. So she says, I really hope to look for a job that I can grow and learn, and most importantly, to contribute back. I am learning a new language and would like to grow, but I'm worried since I am new to the language. I'm hoping to apply for a job with new language, but I'm worried I might not be good enough for the position. What would you advise?
Go for it. Like probably the people who is working in that language also don't know much about the language. Language is something that we build over time. I'm telling this as a person that is speaking in English and has been learning English for years, and I still shop English when I talk about it. So, and that's something I'm using every day. Imagine a programming language. Programming language, the advantage of it is like sometimes there's a limit of words that exist in the language, but the amount of things you can create is limitless. So there's things that are going to be new for everybody, and don't feel discouraged because you feel you're learning. It's normal learning. Like learning is our nature as humans. So if you feel that you're learning, great, yeah, go for that job. And if they tell you like, oh, you need to like, if they give you feedback about it, it's cool. Just go for it. Also, feel free to create little projects that make you for yourself. This is not for the people around you. It's like create projects that make you feel this tangible learning. Sometimes we feel we don't learn because we don't have a proof that we learn. It's not like you're making like buildings that there's a building to show that you learn how to do building. It's more like you need to build little stuff that makes you self-aware that you have grown into this language, new technology, whatever is happening around. That's my advice.
So I'll put my interview coach hat on and I'll give you some advice on this. Go ahead and apply for the job. But before you do that, just take a look at how long has this language been around. If your language is relatively new, let's say React Native is not that long ago, C++ has been around forever. And so judge your competition by how much people already know, what's the bar that they're going to compare you against, and what's your plan on actually achieving that knowledge a little bit before the interview, and most importantly after the job. And in doing that interview, if you do get the call, or even your cover letter, try to highlight how you have learned new things and give them confidence that even though you've not done this for a while, how in other areas you have taken on new things and delivered on it, and so that it gives them a little bit of confidence to invite you for an interview. And if you do get a job for a call for an interview, make sure throughout that interview you're able to communicate that you are a quick learner. You are able and demonstrate, show some proof points of here is something that I took on, I was new, I learned, and this was the output, and give them that confidence that you will be able to do that job. And then talk about the plan on how you will learn this new language, what kind of resources you've got, like paint a picture in front of them. And the more confidence that they have is that you can come in and do the job, the more likely you'll get it. And because you would have done all that work, you're going to feel more confident when you get the job, and you'll be able to execute on that learning plan that you showed them.
All right, thank you so much, Shilpa, for that final word. We're getting now to the end of our time here at right about 8:30 p.m. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again to all of our panelists and our moderator. Thank you for everybody who attended, and we hope to see you at future events. We love seeing you all come back and see your faces if you're willing to turn on your video cameras and everything. Have a great night. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.